Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere hot. Not just forgot your sunscreen, hot, but the kind of heat where sandals melt, shadows feel like air conditioning, and drinking water tastes like warm soup 5 minutes after pouring it. Welcome to ancient Persia, where temperatures routinely soared above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and yet somehow people thrived, built empires, and even stored ice. Yes, ice. You're walking down a dusty road lined with earthen homes the color of burnt sugar. The sun is still high, baking the adobe walls and shimmering off distant rooftops like a mirage. Your clothes are clinging, your eyelids heavy, and honestly, you begin to regret everything until you feel it. A breeze. A sudden, cool puff of air drifting down from a tall tower above one of the homes. No fans, no wires, no spells. Just ancient ingenuity. You duck into a mud brick alleyway where the walls rise high and lean slightly inward. The passage narrows, and as you go deeper, it gets cooler, quiet. You can almost hear your heartbeat slowing. The sunlight above is barely a ribbon, flickering across the baked walls. You press your hand to one, dry, crumbly, warm, but not scalding, and realize this isn't accidental. These homes were built to battle heat with brains. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge farther into the city of Yaz, nestled deep in what we now call Iran. It's a place where architecture was never just about aesthetics. It was survival. Imagine society so attuned to the desert that its buildings didn't just resist the heat, they tamed it. You pass a cluster of homes whose walls were molded from a simple mixture, mud, straw, and a bit of lime or ash. The mud bricks are hand-formed and sun-dried, not baked, which allows them to breathe. That breath is key. These bricks soak up heat during the day and gently exhale at night, like a sigh. They're not flashy, but they're brilliant. As you keep walking, a child runs past you holding a small clay cup filled with something cold. Wait, cold? In this weather? You follow her through a low doorway and into a courtyard shaded by a canopy of grapevines. The air here is surprisingly cool, and for the first time all day, you don't feel like you're in a toaster. Birds chirp softly, and a fountain burbles lazily in the center, feeding a tiled channel that runs underfoot. This is no accident either. The courtyard isn't just a garden. It's a precision-crafted microclimate. The water evaporates, cooling the air. The plants filter sunlight. The open roof invites rising heat to leave. It's like stepping into the desert's secret handshake. Now, here's where things start to get impressive. You glance up and spot a strange, rectangular chimney sticking up from the rooftop, like a periscope. It's called a badger or wind catcher. Looks like a chimney. Acts like an air conditioner. The concept is simple. Catch wind, funnel it downward, cool the house. But Persian architects didn't stop there. Some wind catchers had internal partitions to redirect breezes or trap sand. Some had water channels at the base to cool the air further through evaporation. The smartest ones worked without wind at all. Seriously, historians still argue whether certain tower shapes were meant to create negative pressure zones or use convection alone to push hot air up and draw cooler air down. Either way, it worked, without electricity, without moving parts, and probably with better energy ratings than your last AC unit. You sit near the fountain and dip your fingers into the water. It's cold, not lukewarm, not tepid, actually cold. A soft voice tells you it's drawn from a cannet, an underground channel that taps into distant mountain aquifers. The water runs miles beneath your feet, insulated from the sun. It's been traveling for hours just to reach this moment. A merchant ambles past carrying fresh dates. He nods, smiles, and gestures toward a large, dome-like structure in the distance. Yakshul, he says. Ice pit. You blink. Did he just say ice? Yes, he did. And yes, we'll go there soon. But for now, lean back against the cool bricks. Listen to the trickle of water. Let the air drift softly over you. This is what ancient comfort feels like. And just when you think it couldn't get better, a low breeze rolls in. It rushes through the alley, catches in the wind catcher, and flows down over your skin like the sigh of an old friend. You close your eyes just for a second. The heat is still out there, but here, in the shelter of mud bricks and clever hands, you're safe. You're cool, and you're home. You ease back up, stretching your limbs as a soft trickle of water fade behind you. That strange dome the merchant pointed to, Yakshul, calls to you now. Ice. In the middle of a sun-choked city? It sounds like a desert fever dream. But you follow the winding alleyways, guided by the distant outline of that odd, beehive-shaped silhouette against the pale blue sky. As you approach, the scent changes. There's a sharp coolness in the air, tinged with damp earth. You round the final corner, and come face to face with a towering mud brick dome. It looks like the world's largest upside-down funnel cake. A soft ridge spirals around it like an earthen ramp, and there's a heavy, squat doorway sunken into its base. You duck inside. Immediately, the temperature drops. Not by degrees, by dimensions. It's like stepping into a subterranean dream. The light dims. The sounds outside vanish, and all you hear is a subtle echo of your own footsteps. The floor slopes downward into a vast pit, lined with insulating materials, packed with thick clay, and once upon a time, filled with ice. Yes, ice. You're in a yakshul, an ancient Persian refrigerator. The word literally means ice pit, and that's precisely what it was. These structures were a feat of desert engineering. The thick mud brick walls, sometimes over 2 meters wide, kept heat out like a fortress. The dome-shaped minimized surface area, exposed to the sun. And beneath it all, a pit deep enough to store tons of ice cut from nearby mountains or harvested during the cold desert nights. Wait, cold nights? Oh yes, that's part of the magic. Even in the blistering deserts of Persia, nights could dip low enough in winter to allow for freezing temperatures. So here's the trick. Ancient Persians would build shallow pools in the open desert, lined with stone or packed earth, and fill them with water overnight. These pools, called ice ponds, were often shaded from early morning sun and protected from the wind. By morning, the top layer of water would freeze. They would skim off this layer, store inside the yakshul, insulate with straw or sawdust, and repeat the process night after night. Over time, the ice pile would grow, so much so that families could preserve food, chill water, and even enjoy frozen desserts long into the scalding summer months. Now, historians still argue whether yakshuls were primarily communal freezers or prestige objects for the elite. Some were massive and centrally located, suggesting public use. Others were tucked into private estates, hinting at exclusivity. But either way, there's no denying the brilliance behind them. A fringe theory you'll love? Some say the very shape of the yakshul was inspired by termites. No, really. Termite mounds use similar passive ventilation and insulation principles. Coincidence or creepy crawly genius? You decide. You crouch beside the empty pit, feeling the cool, damp air curl up from below. It's a quiet, unbothered kind of chill. No hum, no compressor, no whirring fan. Just bricks, mud, gravity, and time. Suddenly, there's a low, scraping sound behind you. A caretaker, stooped and silver-bearded, appears with a small clay cup. He hands it to you with a smile. The drink is cold, flecked with mint, and as you sip, the chill wraps around your tongue and sinks into your chest. You close your eyes. For a moment, it feels like you're not in a desert at all. This place, this cool, forgotten dome, isn't just clever. It's comforting. You picture generations before you. Mothers tucking away fruits, children sneaking chunks of ice, traders pausing for a cold water after days in the sun. The yakshul wasn't just about ice. It was about life. Back outside, the wind catchers still poke into the sky like solemn guardians. Their mouths agape. They whisper across rooftops. The domes, the cannons, the thick-walled homes. It's all part of a bigger story. A system. A way of life that turned brutal heat into something manageable, even pleasant. But you're not done yet. Not even close. Because while the yakshul is impressive, it's just one piece of the puzzle. The next part of your journey winds beneath your feet, where a world of hidden rivers and pitch-black tunnels snakes through the desert floor. built with nothing more than shovels, baskets, and stubborn genius. You step away from the dome, the sunlight pressing gently against your skin again. But this time, it's not so unbearable. You've seen what's possible with mud, math, and a little moonlight. The ground hums faintly beneath your sandals, as if it's holding secrets just below the surface. And it is. You follow the faint hum under your feet, drawn now to a hidden force threading silently beneath the baked earth. There's nothing obvious guiding you, just a persistent instinct, and maybe the occasional patch of ground that feels cooler. You pass the corner of a crumbling brick wall, brush past dry reeds whispering the wind, and then you see it. A small, square opening in the earth, no bigger than a doghouse door, ringed with stone. It exhales a thin breath of air, almost like it's alive. You kneel beside the opening and peer in. Darkness swallows your gaze, the tunnel sloping gradually downward. This is no rabbit hole, it's a cannon, and it goes deep, really deep, like you're not climbing out if you slip, deep, and it stretches not just downward, but outward, sometimes for miles. Cannons were the literal lifeblood of ancient Persian civilization. Picture straw stuck sideways into an underground water table high up in the hills. Water runs down to the tunnel by sheer gravity, surfacing in the lowlands where it's needed most. No pumps, no electricity, just gravity doing all the heavy lifting. You inch closer, resting your hand against the cool stone rim. It's moist, not soaking, just subtly alive. That moisture has traveled for hours, even days, along a channel carved by human hands through bedrock, centuries ago. Let that sink in. Someone dug this one bucket of dirt at a time. Cannon systems weren't just water pipelines. They were elaborate networks, often spanning over 50 kilometers. With precise grading control, no GPS, no computers, just math, sweat, and trial by sandstorm. Vertical access shafts like the one in front of you to route every 20 to 30 meters. They were used to haul up soil, allow air in, and, let in maintenance workers who were probably part mole. Mainstream historians often cite cannons as the reason large cities like Yaz, Kerman, and the Shaper could exist in the first place. Without them, life in these water-parched deserts would have been like trying to run a garden hose in the Sahara. Good luck with that. But here's the part that's beautifully strange. Some cannons are still in use. Like, right now, right beneath towns bustling with scooters, smartphones, and satellite dishes. The ancient tech just kept working. And the locals, to their credit, didn't toss it aside like expired software. There's even an argument, yes, still hotly debated, that cannons influenced Roman aqueducts. Roman engineers might have borrowed the concept while traipsing through Persia, adding a bit more stone, a few arches, and voila, a Roman upgrade. Others say both systems evolved independently. Either way, the parallel is too perfect to ignore. Now, for a fringe detail that might make you blink twice. There are tales, unconfirmed but deliciously persistent, that some cannons had secret branches, not just for water, but for escape, hidden exits for royalty, smuggling routes, love affairs that dodged the nosy anti-class. Historians roll their eyes, but hey, people have always been sneaky when passion or treasure is involved. You lie flat beside the shaft and press your ear to the rim. Nothing at first. Then, faintly, a soft glug-glug, like water talking in its sleep. And you wonder, if you dropped the candle in, would the breeze blow it out? Would the flame flicker with every ancient sigh of water below? Your eyes trace the desert around you. It looks empty, but now you know better. Beneath the silence are veins, long, patient, engineered veins, pulling water from mountain roots to desert palms. You feel oddly safe, knowing they're there. You stand and brush the dust from your knees. Not far from here, the channels surface again, delivering their precious cargo into orchards, homes, and, yes, baths. Because what's the point of ingenious water transport if you can't use it to wash off the desert? As you walk, you notice narrow streams trickling alongside clay brick walls. They're canal-fed, carried into neighborhoods in open troughs that gurgle gently as you pass. Children splash in them, cats drink from them, and every so often, someone ducks in to rinse their face with side that says, Ah, that's better. These surface channels, called jubs, are fed directly by canets. They weave through cities like veins beneath skin, and no two are quite the same. Some curve in strange ways, dodging buildings that no longer exist. Others disappear into courtyards and never come back out. You follow one with your eyes until it vanishes beneath a heavy wooden door. Someone somewhere is soaking their feet as you pass. There's a kind of reverence to all of this, a quiet understanding between the people and the water. You don't waste it. You don't question it. You just keep it flowing. And here's a fun aside. Early engineers use a clever trick to measure the water's flow. They'd carve out a large bowl with a hole in the bottom, place it in a filled basin, and time how long it took to sink. That became a unit of measurement. Water clocks, as in clocks made out of water. Tick-tock, Persian edition. So, yeah, ancient Persia had plumbing, irrigation, and timekeeping all wrapped into one wet, glorious system. The sun is starting to lower now, staining the domes in peach and copper. The wind catchers begin to draw cool air again, and the city exhales. You pause near a shady wall where the air smells of damp clay, honeysuckle, and something faintly citrus. Ahead of you looms a cluster of tall mud brick homes, their walls thick as tree trunks. You're about to enter them, not just physically, but architecturally, because in ancient Persia, the very walls knew how to breathe. And as strange as that sounds, you'll soon feel it for yourself. You slip into a narrow passage between two towering mud brick walls, their height pressing like canyon cliffs, sculpted not by wind, but by human hands with clay and straw. The air immediately changes, cooler, stiller, and faintly earthy, like walking into a bread oven that's just been washed out. You reach out to touch the wall beside you, and your fingertips come away slightly dusty but chilled. This isn't just construction, it's climate control. The secret? Mud bricks. Adobe. Call what you like. It's dirt, water, straw, and time. Mixed, molded, sun-dried, and stacked with a kind of geometric poetry. And the result? A thermal miracle. These walls soak up the heat like a camel drinks water. During the day, they absorb the sun's fury. At night, they release it slowly, warming you just enough to keep desert chill from gnawing at your bones. But it's more than just hot wall good. Ancient Persian builders knew exactly how thick to make these mud bricks, usually about 50 to 70 centimeters, depending on local climate. Thick enough to insulate, thin enough to breathe. Yes, breathe. Adobe walls are porous. They draw in moisture during the rare rains, then exhale it slowly over days, subtly humidifying otherwise bone-dry air. You don't notice it immediately, but after a few hours, your skin does. The homes themselves. Oh, there's something else. On the outside, they all seem modest. Flat roofs, small windows, a few pomegranate trees, peeking over courtyard walls. But step through one of those arched wooden doors, and boom, you're inside a world designed not just for living, but for surviving. You're in a central courtyard, and everything around it wraps inward like a hug. Rooms don't face the street. They face each other. Privacy meets airflow. Every window and doorway is placed with intent. Every column and arch casts just the right shade. You stand still and realize, despite the heat outside, you're not sweating. Not even a little. This is no accident. A curious little term whispers its way into your mind. Passive cooling. No fans. No Freon. Just math, materials, and ancient intuition. Historians agree that Persian builders mastered passive cooling thousands of years before modern HVAC ever stumbled onto the scene. Still, some scholars argue how systematic it all was. Was this science or just very refined tradition? The debate never ends. But here's a tasty tidbit. Some of the wealthier homes had floors designed to let air pass beneath them, cooled by the canned water running just underfoot. Basically, underfloor air conditioning. You probably don't have that in your apartment. And if you do, well, you owe Persia a thank you card. You duck into one of the side rooms, a tailor, and immediately feel a soft draft kiss your cheek. The ceiling above you soars in a gentle dome, studded with open wooden latticework that filters sunlight into patterns that shimmy across the floor. The room feels 10 degrees cooler than outside. You sit on a stone bench and tilt your face up, And that's when you spot it. A narrow shaft, hidden in the ceiling, angled just so toward the nearest badger or wind catcher. Ah, yes, the wind catcher again. Remember that tall fin structure from earlier? Its work isn't done when it snags a breeze. No, it channels that wind into the house like an invisible river. As the air descends through the shaft, it passes over jars of cool water or dampened cloth, sometimes even that underfloor cannon stream, before wafting gently into the rooms. It's nature's air conditioning, engineered by people who'd never seen a thermostat. Now here's where things get even weirder, in the best way. Some mud brick homes were built with double walls, with a narrow hollow space in between. Why? So that the hot air rising on the outer wall would pull cooler air from the shaded side, creating a natural current that looped through the house like an invisible breath. You don't see it, you don't hear it, but you feel it. A subtle, ghostly exhale that kisses your skin every few minutes and keeps your brain from melting. And when it comes to the roofs, flat, yes, but also multi-purpose. In the evenings, families would climb up with cushions and melon slices, lying back to let the mud beneath them release its store heat while the stars flickered above like static on a silk curtain. Some roofs had low parapet walls to keep kids from rolling off mid-nap. Others had little trapdoors leading back inside, like the world's first rooftop lounges, minus the overpriced cocktails. One fringe legend claimed certain rooftops had simple periscopes to let you spy on the street below. Unlikely? Maybe. But in cities like Yaz, where social etiquette met James Bond-level curiosity, anything's possible. You shift your weight and lean against the inner wall, letting your body sink to the cool rhythm of baked mud and whispered air. There's something meditative about it, like the house is breathing for you. In, out, warm, cool, no humming appliances, no compressor clunking to life, just balance. And the more you explore, the more it becomes clear. These homes weren't just shelters. They were instruments, tuned to the environment like a flute to its key. One misplaced window, one wall too thin, and the music goes flat. But get it right, and you live in harmony with your desert, not in spite of it. You press your palm flat to the wall again. It's not just a structure. It's a living record of temperature, weather, and time. When it rains, which, okay, rarely, it darkens for days, releasing its moisture like a sigh. When the wind picks up, it hums faintly. And when the sun rages, it stands firm. It's no wonder some Persian mud brick homes have stood for centuries. Sure, they've needed patching. A few earthquakes tried their best. But the bones, the thick earthen bones, still hold. And in many places, people still live in them, not as a nod to history, but because they work. You step out into the courtyard again, just in time to see a small bird dip into a water basin fed by one of those slow-trickling jugs. It splashes once, then lifts off in a shimmer of droplets and disappears over the wall. The shadows are long now. The wind is picking up again, and you're starting to wonder what other tricks these ancient homes still have up their sleeves. Because if walls can breathe and roofs can chill you, then maybe, just maybe, floors can whisper too. The floor beneath your feet isn't just for walking. It's an unsung hero in this ancient cooling orchestra. You crouch down, press your hand to the tile, and feel that curious chill again. Not ice cold, but certainly not sun-baked either. Almost like the earth itself is trying to cool your blood through your palms. And it kind of is. See, below the house, beneath these thick mud brick foundations, something remarkable is flowing. Something the ancient Persians engineered with almost mischievous genius. The Cannon system. Imagine a network of underground water channels, carefully carved at a gentle slope from mountain aquifers into cities, villages, and yes, even into homes like this. These tunnels could stretch for tens of kilometers, and you'd never even see them. Just an occasional access shaft here and there, silent, shadowy portals into the earth. Now, that water isn't just for drinking or washing. The clever bit is how it cools everything it passes. Because the tunnels are underground, away from the sun's heat, the water stays naturally cold. and that coolness radiates. Pipes or stone ducts might carry it on the floors, or it may pool into a shallow basin built right into the base of the home. You may not hear it, but it's there, humming like a hidden river, turning the floor into a passive cooling plate. Historians still argue whether the system was deliberately tied into cooling functions or was simply a lucky byproduct of good plumbing. But given how often these systems appear beneath wealthier homes and how precisely they're placed, it's hard not to give the ancient architects some credit. One scholar even joked that ancient Persia had the earliest form of radiant floor cooling, long before any European villa thought to do the same. You follow a stone channel into a narrow chamber, perhaps once a pantry or wine store. The temperature here drops another few degrees. A small pool of cannet-fed water glistens in the corner, not much larger than a kitchen sink. No algae, no bugs, just pure, cold water. Above it, an angled shaft catches whatever breeze is moving above and funnels it down toward the surface. As the air schemes across the water, it cools. Heavier now, it slips down and out through another opening into the main hall. Voila! Air conditioning, minus the electricity bill. Of course, not every home had this. This was high-tech luxury, the ancient equivalent of a smart thermostat. Most people made do with jugs of water, placed strategically near open windows or shady doorways. But the principle was the same. Moving air over moisture creates a cooling effect. You felt it yourself every time you walked past a lawn sprinkler in summer or stood too close to a dripping air conditioning unit. One fringe theory even suggests that homeowners would hang wet rugs or drape soaked cloths near floor vents, allowing air to wick the moisture as it passed. Was this widespread? Historians shrug. But it's so logical that you can't help but believe some clever grandmother figured out one scorching July and never told a soul. And that brings us to one of the most bizarre little details in the subterranean tale: the smell. Or rather, the lack of it. Despite the water, the mud, the potential for mildew, these homes smell clean. Earthy, yes, but not musty. Why? The constant air circulation from wind catchers and floor vents keeps everything dry enough to avoid the usual cave funk. Some homes even had vents angled like chimneys, not for smoke, but to draw stale air upward and out, creating a constant flow. It's like living in a terracotta wind tunnel, a very well-behaved one. You wander back toward the center of the house, noticing how the floor tiles change texture and color. In cooler rooms, they're smoother, darker, perhaps basalt or dense clay. In sunlit areas, you spot lighter tones, sometimes even glazed tiles that reflect heat instead of absorbing it. It's not just decoration. It's a thermal map, guiding your feet from one temperature zone to another. You pause by a niche in the wall, decorated with intricate stucco and tucked with a single oil lamp. Someone once sat here, perhaps many centuries ago, cooling their feet on the same tile, sipping tea brewed from canned water. They probably didn't call it sustainable design. They just called it living. By now, the sun has lowered enough to cast golden streaks across the courtyard, and the air feels different again, lighter, more relaxed. You can almost hear the sigh of the house as it switches gears. The walls, warmed all day, will now begin to give back that heat, but slowly. Not in a rush, not all at once. Just a long, gentle exhale. And beneath it all, the floors stay cool. They always do. You can see now how this wasn't just architecture. It was choreography. Air moves in certain paths. Water flows beneath and around. Heat is captured and released in rhythm with the sky. The home isn't just reacting to the environment. It's anticipating it. You're not fighting nature here. You're dancing with it. And as you sit cross-legged on the cool tile floor, leaning back against a sun-warmed wall, you start to feel something else too. Something modern homes often lack. Silence. Not the digital silence of noise-canceling headphones or muted phones. Real silence. The kind that comes when everything is in balance. The wind whispers. The water trickles below. Your body, at last, stops resisting the temperature. It's no wonder that even today, in cities like Yaz, mud brick homes with cannet-cool floors are still in use. Some have air conditioners now, sure, but on most days they're not needed. Why pay for what the earth already offers? And you, lucky traveler, have just begun to appreciate the sheer genius hiding beneath your feet. You don't notice it at first, but then the scent changes, something faint, slightly metallic, like damp stone meeting dry air. It comes from a narrow passage you hadn't explored yet, a darker space with thicker walls. Almost womb-like in the way it cocoons you as you walk in. The temperature dips further, and the light dims into a soft, amber hush. You found it, the cellar, or more accurately, a yakshul, the ancient Persian ice pit. Yes, you heard that right. Ice. In the desert, made and kept without a freezer, centuries before refrigeration was anything but a daydream. Now, technically, this isn't just a cellar. It's a marvel of physics, geometry, and sheer stubborn brilliance. Picture a giant dome or cone, often 20 feet high above the surface, and at least that deep underground. The outer shell is built from a special mud brick, an ash mix called sarouj, which is waterproof and heat-resistant. It's thick, sometimes more than 2 meters across, and layered like a pastry. All of this to protect what's stored within precious, painstakingly harvested ice. Historians still argue whether the ice stored in yakshuls was primarily gathered during winter and preserved to the hot months, or whether desert-dwelling engineers actually made ice during winter nights using shallow pools outside the dome. These pools, exposed to the bitter cold of the desert night sky, would freeze despite the dry climate. Workers would scrape up the ice before sunrise, cart it to the yakshul, and pack it deep inside using insulation layers of straw, sawdust, and more frozen slabs. You descend the steps now, noticing how each footfall echoes with a dull thud against curved walls. This shape isn't for aesthetics. It's part of the thermal logic. Heat rises, and the dome's towering design keeps the heat far from the ice store below. The base, meanwhile, connects directly to the Cannet system, allowing any meltwater to drain away without turning the chamber into a moldy puddle. It's elegant, ancient drainage. Honestly, you've seen office buildings with worse. And here's the weird part. It works. Yakshuls could preserve ice for months, sometimes all year. In the middle of July, with temperatures soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, a family might chip off a sliver of frozen luxury and drop it into a metal cup of pomegranate syrup. The ultimate ancient slushy. If that doesn't impress you, remember this was a time when most people still thought sweating was a divine punishment, not a survival mechanism. A quirky detail? Some yakshuls doubled as crypts or perishables, not bodies, thankfully, but things like saffron, dried herbs, rosewater, even clotted cream. In some cases, dried fish or meat. So while you're admiring this miracle of heat-proof design, you might also be standing above an ancient pantry. Just don't imagine the smell. One dusty scroll mentions that some aristocratic families kept snowballs wrapped in linen inside wooden boxes. Literal snowballs, probably from a nearby mountain. It's hard to say whether this was for fun, religious rituals, or just dramatic dessert theatrics. You have to respect the flair. Of course, not every home had its own private yakshul. These were civic projects too, shared among neighborhoods or built near bazaars to serve ice water vendors and sweet shops. And they weren't subtle either. Those domes stuck out like alien helmets in the flat desert landscape. But in places like Yaz or Kerman, nobody questioned it. That looming beige cone meant comfort, refreshment, and most importantly, survival. As you lean against the curved wall and close your eyes, you can imagine workers silently entering before dawn, dragging chunks of ice on worn wooden sleds, packing them in straw, pressing each layer with practiced hands. The air is cold, still and somehow sacred. They didn't have compressors or coils, just mud, wind, math, and patience. And just when you think this couldn't get any more surreal, an ice bunker in the desert. You remember that they often built these near wind catchers, so that air could be drawn down into the dome, cooled by the ice, and then piped through nearby homes. Yes, they used ice to make air conditioning. And you're still bragging about your smart fridge. It's tempting to romanticize this, to think ancient Persians were magical eco-geniuses sent from the future. But the truth is even better. They were ordinary people with extraordinary incentives. They didn't have fossil fuels or HVAC systems, so they learned to collaborate with the elements. Wind, water, mud, and time, these were their tools. Their challenge was to survive the desert. Their solution? A dome of coldness in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't get more poetic than that. Oh, and just for fun, there's an obscure theory that some yaktuals were used in summer weddings. The bride and groom would be gifted a bowl of shaved ice topped with honey and rose syrup. Maybe that's where the term honeymoon picked up its first literal chill. Or maybe that's just another heat-stricken historian reaching for romance. Either way, you kind of wish you had a spoon right now. The air here is dense with stillness, the kind that makes your breathing slow, your thoughts heavy, your eyelids rebellious. You step quietly back toward the stairs, your fingers tracing the rough sarouge walls, already warmer near the top. The dome hums with thermal balance, and for a second, you forget what century it is. By the time you emerge, the night sky has taken over. Stars blink lazily above, and the desert wind shifts again, softer now, brushing against your skin like the exhale of a sleeping earth. And behind you, tucked in that domed chamber, ancient ice still dreams beneath mud and straw. As you walk away from the ice dome, that sleepy buzz in your head starts to give way to curiosity again. The night air presses against your skin like warm velvet now, but there's a new sound up ahead, gurgling, soft, and rhythmic. It's not the wind this time. You follow the sound, your steps crunching over sand and stone, until you come across something that looks like an overgrown ditch. Except it's not a ditch. It's lined with stones, too deliberate, too clean. You've stumbled upon a Kanet's surface access point, one of the hidden veins of ancient Persian survival. Kanets are the secret plumbing of the desert, but they're less about pipes and more like long, sloping miracle tunnels. Imagine digging a narrow tunnel, often 30 to 60 feet underground, starting from the base of a mountain where water collects naturally, usually from snowmelt, and angling it downhill for miles, all the way to a town or field. And now imagine doing that with picks, shovels, and baskets. No drills, no GPS, just eyeballs, donkeys, and hope. You probably wouldn't survive this project. But hey, they did. These tunnels weren't just clever, they were everything. Without them, Persia would have been a giant sandbox with a few sad oases. With them, they created farms, cities, and a civilization that lasted millennia. The beauty of a Kanet is how it moves water. Without a single pump, it relies entirely on gravity. Water from a higher elevation just flows through the gently sloping tunnel, surfacing right where it's needed. No boiling sun to steal it through evaporation. No aquifer pumping to cause sinkholes. Just earth, slope, and flow. Now here's a quirky twist. Kanets have vertical shafts spaced along their route, like breathing holes for a buried dragon. These shafts gave workers a way to drop down, dig, and carry up the debris. But they also help ventilate the tunnels and cool the air moving through them. So when those ancient wind catchers pulled in breezes, the air passed over these water channels, soaking the cold from underground before being funneled into homes. You weren't just getting wind, you were getting air-conditioned wind. And you didn't even need a single plug. Historians still argue whether Kanets originated in Persia proper or if earlier examples were independently developed in places like Mesopotamia. But the Iranians perfected them. Some Kanets stretched for 30 miles or more, dropping just a few inches per 100 feet. Ridiculously precise slopes for people without laser levels. And they managed to keep the tunnels stable with stone linings, brick arches, or just pure dirt engineering. Think about the coordination involved. Surveying, digging, venting, channeling, all while trying not to collapse a tunnel on your own head. Honestly, modern office projects collapse with less pressure. You squat near the stone channel and touch the water. It's cool, silken clean. This is no puddle or canal. This water has traveled miles beneath your feet, protected from the punishing sun and dirty hands. It's the kind of water that feels ancient even before it reaches your mouth. And there's something else here, old whispers from underground. One local legend says that if you listen closely near a Kanet's entrance at midnight, you'll hear the murmuring of spirits guarding the water. Farmers used to leave coins at the openings or sweet dates as a kind of thank you offering. Was it spiritual, superstition, or just a way of reminding everyone not to take their only lifeline for granted? You tell yourself you're above that, but you still hesitate before stepping over the channel. Some cannons even had rest stops built above them for travelers, because nothing screams hospitality like a hidden cool spot in the middle of nowhere. Imagine you're trudging to the desert, blistered and dizzy, and then boom, you find a clay structure with thick walls, cooled by underground water. You sit, drink, sleep, you live another day. No Wi-Fi, but hey, hydration is the original luxury. The system was so effective that it spread far and wide. The Romans, North Africans, and even parts of China borrowed the idea. In fact, the Spanish word acequia for irrigation ditch traces back to Arabic influence, which inherited much from Persian Canat tech. It's basically the water equivalent of a world tour, ancient edition. And here's your fringe tidbit for the night. There are stories of underground rooms, secret libraries, even stashes of gold discovered during Canat renovations. Some say rebel leaders hid messages or loot in sealed-off side tunnels. Others believe that certain Persian queens had private Canat-fed baths that no man was allowed to approach. Reality? Hard to say. But the idea of secret cold water hideouts beneath a burning world? That's the kind of dreamy, dusty intrigue that makes you want to dig for treasure, or maybe just dig for shade. You lean back now, watching the moon ripple in the narrow ribbon of water. Crickets chirp. Somewhere in the distance, a desert fox barks. Sharp, brief, gone. The breeze stirs again, this time drawn from the Canat's invisible depth. And for a moment, you realize the Persians weren't fighting the desert. They were whispering to it, nudging its rhythms, redirecting its strength, harnessing silence and gravity to build something that lasts. You start walking again, slowly now, feet sinking slightly in the sand. The air is softer here. Your limbs feel looser. The ground beneath you hides a miracle that once saved millions and still quietly flows today, carrying the ghost-cold fingerprints of forgotten hands. You keep moving, lulled by the gentle hush of the desert and the steady breath of the Canat behind you. Your path curls toward a place where the land seems to rise and fall like lazy waves, low mounds of baked earth, almost symmetrical, almost sculptural. From a distance, they resemble termite hills. Up close, they are something far more deliberate, the wind towers or badgers of a once grand Persian residence. These structures don't just rise from the homes. They rise above them, like watchtowers for the wind itself. Four-sided, six-sided, sometimes even octagonal, their narrow slits and decorative grills beckon any breeze to enter, like the world's most graceful vacuum hoses. You stare up, and the towers seem to peer back down at you, stoic, ancient, mildly judgmental. The genius of badgers lies in how completely they manipulate their surroundings. You think of air conditioning as this heavy, buzzing, Freon-powered box. But the Persians? They coaxed air like snake charmers. A breeze enters a tower, travels down a vertical shaft, cools as it passes over wet surfaces or underground canons, and drifts gently through the living quarters. When there's no wind, the tower flips rolls. It becomes a chimney, drawing hot air out of the house by natural convection. It's like an HVAC system designed by a poet. Historians still argue whether the original concept of badgers came from central Iran or further south, perhaps around Yazd. Some point to similar structures in Egypt and Pakistan, but none match the artistry or the passive efficiency of Persian wind towers. You're standing in front of one now, and even in the dead of night, it hums quietly with movement. Step inside the house, and the cool hits you like a whispered secret. Not cold, just not hot, just right, like a wine cellar at twilight. The walls are thick, mud brick lined with clay and straw. You run your hand across them and feel how they store the day's heat, releasing it in slow, sleepy sighs as night drapes the desert. Above you, the wind tower filters moonlight through its wooden slats, casting trembling shadows on the floor like fingers stretched underwater. There's a quirky feature in some of these homes, underground courtyards called sardabs. These are shaded cellars where cold air naturally settles. Some sardabs had pools or fountains that weren't just decorative. They were part of the cooling system. Water would evaporate slowly, cooling the air, which would then drift upward through the house. And yes, you might catch someone in their pajamas napping down there at noon. Can you blame them? Sardabs were the Persian answer to the afternoon nap, air-conditioned centuries before it became a hashtag. And here's a delightful side note. Some badgers were status symbols. The more towers your house had, the fancier you were. 1 tower meant you were practical. 2 meant you were ambitious. 4 more, you were either extremely wealthy or extremely desperate to be cool, literally and figuratively. There's even one historic house in Yaz with 8 wind towers, like someone tried to collect them all. A few scholars think the design of the wind tower might have even influenced mosque minarets, or vice versa. Both are tall, slender, open to the air, and deeply symbolic. The badger, though, is less about calling to prayer and more about calling to comfort. Still, stand beneath one on a quiet night like this, and you might feel a spiritual breeze rising through your ribs. You explore further, your steps echoing faintly on stone floors. The house opens into a central courtyard, ringed by arched doorways and lit by the starlight above. You can almost see the ghost of a merchant sipping pomegranate juice here, fanning himself lazily while a servant adjusts the cushions. The walls would have been painted with soft ochres and blues, the wooden doors carved with geometric designs. Beauty married to practicality in true Persian fashion. And if you were lucky, this house might have had its own small cistern or ambar nestled beneath it. These underground reservoirs stored water collected from cannons or rain, sealed tightly to keep out heat and evaporation. Some had domes and thick walls up to 2 meters wide. Others were fitted with steps, steep and narrow, leading down into the dark, cold depths. It's the kind of place you'd dare your cousin to enter, only to scream when you hear your own echo bouncing off the curved stone ceiling. Remember the chill from the ice dome? This is its quieter cousin. No fanfare. Just cool, reliable air drawn through a tower, filtered through earth, made livable by architecture that doesn't demand energy, just patience and respect. And yes, not all badgers were perfect. Occasionally, a poorly placed tower might funnel in more dust than breeze. Some designs let in birds, or worse, snakes, one of which once startled a scholar so badly he supposedly renounced architecture altogether and took up writing poetry instead. But those were rare cases. More often than not, badgers worked, and still work, with quiet brilliance that modern buildings can only dream of emulating. You pause beneath one now, head tilted back, a moth flutters by, drawn to the pale shimmer above. The air moves, slowly, deliberately, like breath through a sleeping giant. You feel the temperature shift along your arms and think, this tower doesn't just catch wind, it catches time. And that's what the Persians understood. Not how to fight the desert, but how to wait with it, how to listen, how to work with the wind, the earth, the water, like dance partners, not enemies. In a world addicted to fast fixes, these towers whisper, let it take a while, let it breathe. You take another slow step forward, the breeze nudging your back like an old friend. The house, the tower, the tunnels, they're not just ancient tech. They're love letters to survival, to adaptation, to the kind of wisdom that wears sandals and doesn't mind a little sand in its bed. The breeze carries you away from the wind tower's cool shadow toward the busy heart of ancient Persian cities, where air conditioning met the hustle and bustle of everyday life. You find yourself amid the narrow, sun-drenched streets lined with mud-brick homes, bustling bazaars, and the soft murmur of people bartering over spices, silk, and carpets. Yet, even here in the heat and clamor, the wisdom of cooling was never far away. You wander into a marketplace where the scent of saffron and rosewater lingers. It's easy to imagine merchants pausing in alleyways shaded by canvas awnings and woven palm fronds, drinking from ceramic water jugs chilled with ice. Yes, ice, harvested from the mountains or stored in deep pits called yachtals. These were not just any pits, but monumental, conical ice houses built from insulating materials that kept ice frozen well into the scorching summer months. Imagine a Persian ice chest, but one that dwarfed today's fridges and had zero electricity. Yachtals had thick walls made of special mortar combining sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair, creating a heat-resistant shell that could keep ice intact for months. You can almost hear the soft crunch of ice as workers chipped it off to sell or cool drinks. Scholars debate how the ice was transported from snowy peaks, some suggesting elaborate caravans with animals draped in blankets, others imagining secret tunnels linking yachtals to mountain streams. Regardless, the presence of ice in the desert feels like a magic trick that never got old. Nearby, you spot a public bathhouse or hammam, steam curling lazily from its domed roof. Hammams were more than places for cleanliness. They were social centers cooled by circulating water and air from nearby cannons and badgers. Imagine the pleasure of slipping into a warm pool that cooled gradually as underground air filtered through damp stone walls. Bathhouses offered a humid relief that complemented the dry desert breeze, creating a kind of natural spa day centuries before spas were trendy. Walking through a garden courtyard, you notice a peculiar invention. A primitive fan operated by a servant pumping a large wooden handle. The fan's blades, shaped from woven reeds, move rhythmically to create a soft breeze. This punka fan, which later inspired fans in India and beyond, was a testament to how people augmented natural cooling with human effort. There's a playful charm in the thought of someone gently fanning a caliph or merchant, perhaps humming an old tune as they do. Historians still argue whether these cooling methods were common luxuries or primarily reserved for the wealthy elite, though evidence of smaller-scale versions hints at broader use. After all, keeping cool in the desert is a survival skill, not a status symbol. Even modest homes had their ways. Thick mud walls that stored cold at night, lattice windows for cross-ventilation, and the occasional placement of water basins near doorways to cool incoming air through evaporation. You pause to recall a quirky fact. Persians sometimes use fragrant plants like mint and rose petals in water basins to create subtly scented air, turning ordinary cooling into a sensorial experience. Imagine the breeze carrying hints of jasmine while you relax on a divan, the sun dipping low and shadows stretching long. Nearby, the marketplace chatter rises and falls like waves. You might even overhear a discussion on origins of these cooling techniques, some attributing them to ancient Zoroastrian priests, others to ingenious village builders. There's no consensus, only a shared admiration for the subtle dance of heat and air that defines life in the desert. You glance at the tile fountain in the courtyard, where water trickles gently over glazed ceramics, sending cool droplets into the air. The sound is hypnotic, a soft percussion that blends with the rustle of palm leaves. This was not just decoration, but part of an ancient cooling orchestra, where every element played its part in creating comfort and calm. As you drift further, you think about how these technologies influenced later Islamic architecture, from the palaces of Alhambra to the courtyard homes of Cairo. The basic principles of passive cooling, water use, and airflow were passed down, adapted, and perfected across centuries and continents. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the heat of the day give way to the subtle chill carried by ancient wisdom. The story of Persian air conditioning is more than a tale of mud and water. It's a story of human ingenuity whispering through the ages, gently cooling our bones and easing our minds. As the sun climbs higher, you step inside one of those iconic Persian homes where the architecture itself breathes life into the concept of comfort. Here, you experience firsthand a clever layout designed to channel every available breeze through the house. Imagine narrow, twisting corridors that create a Venturi effect, where the wind speeds up as it squeezes through tight spaces, turning simple air movement into a refreshing gust that chases away the desert heat. These homes often featured a central courtyard, a green oasis surrounded by high mud brick walls, cool pools reflecting the sky, and leafy trees shading the earth. This courtyard wasn't just for beauty or privacy, but a clever cooling system. By evaporating water and heat, the courtyard created a localized microclimate several degrees cooler than the surrounding streets, a natural air conditioner powered by water and shade. You might picture the family sitting on woven mats around a low table, sipping sherbet scented with rose water, while gentle breezes carry the mingled scents of jasmine and fresh mint. This sensory layering was part of the whole experience, a cooling strategy that soothed not only the body but the mind and spirit. The roofs of these homes were often flat and whitewashed to reflect the blazing sun, with thick walls up to a meter thick that absorbed the heat during the day and released it slowly after sunset. The thermal mass of these walls was a bit like a natural thermostat, softening temperature swings to make desert living more bearable. You notice, too, how windows are often small and set high to keep direct sunlight out, while the delicate wooden screens, called mashabia, allow air to flow freely but offer privacy and shade. These screens create shifting patterns of light and shadow inside the rooms, a slow dance of sunbeams and shade that adds to the calm. You remember the wind towers, badgers, that we talked about earlier, towering over the houses like sentinels, catching the slightest breeze and funneling it down into the living spaces. Some badgers were even split into sections to catch wind from multiple directions, a testament to Persian engineers' love of complexity and refinement. Historians still argue whether the elaborate badger systems were widespread in urban centers or mostly used by the wealthy, but either way, they influenced architectural design throughout the Middle East for centuries. On a quirky note, some homes had cleverly placed water jars set in the path of the airstream, so the breeze passing over the cool surface carried a refreshing chill into the room. This idea of air conditioning with just water and airflow might seem simple, but it was a marvel in a land where temperatures could soar above 40 degrees Celsius regularly. Walking through these ancient homes, you can almost hear the muffled laughter of children playing hide-and-seek among the trees, the quiet conversations of adults discussing the day's news while enjoying the shade. There's a slow, meditative rhythm to this way of life, where architecture and nature conspire to create comfort without fuss or noise. It's worth noting that some scholars suggest the design principles of these homes influenced later colonial architecture in warm climates, showing how ancient Persian wisdom traveled far beyond its origins. You might chuckle imagining how different modern air conditioning would be if we all embraced such slow, natural cooling. No buzzing compressors, just a gentle whisper of wind and the soothing trickle of water. As you linger in the shade, you feel the pulse of history in these mud walls, a quiet testimony to human creativity finding comfort in the harshest conditions. The evening draws near, and you find yourself wandering toward the grand palaces of the Achaemenid Empire, where the air conditioning marvels grow even more elaborate. Here, the ingenuity of Persian engineers blends architecture, water engineering, and landscaping into a seamless symphony of coolness, designed to impress as much as to comfort. You step to the massive gates of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, and envision the royal gardens sprawling beyond. These gardens were not just ornamental, but part of a carefully engineered cooling system called a paradise garden or paradisa, a word that later gave us the English paradise. The word itself hints at the blissful experience these gardens offered, a retreat from the blazing heat. Picture the layout: rectangular plots with rows of fragrant trees, flowers, and canals filled with flowing water. The gentle sound of water combined with the shade created pockets of cooler air, and the reflective surfaces helped reduce radiant heat. Water was everywhere, from fountains to narrow channels called canets that brought mountain spring water miles underground into the city. These canets were crucial, ingenious underground tunnels gently sloping to bring fresh water from distant sources without evaporation loss. You can almost feel the cool dampness in the air around canals, a natural counterpoint to the desert's dryness. The palaces themselves were built with thick mud bricks and stone, with open courtyards and tall, column halls designed to promote air circulation. The high ceilings and wide arches not only impress visitors, but also encourage hot air to rise away from the rooms below. You might imagine the king reclining on a cushioned divan, a servant holding a large feather fan slowly swaying, while a nearby water basin cools the air that drifts in. The contrast between the dry heat outside and the gentle, moist air inside must have felt like stepping into a different world. Historians still argue whether the Achaemenids had access to mechanical fans, or if everything relied purely on architectural design and natural breezes. But either way, the cooling effect was undeniable. Here's a quirky aside. Some accounts suggest that the Persians used early forms of evaporative cooling not just on buildings, but on their clothing too. Imagine wearing robes dipped in scented water to help keep cool, a wearable air conditioner, if you will. It sounds a bit like the ancient version of those cooling towels athletes use today. Another fascinating detail is the role of trees in the palace gardens. not only providing shade but also releasing moisture into the air through transpiration, a natural humidifier that softened the arid climate. It's a reminder that the Persian understanding of comfort was holistic, blending nature and technology. You may wonder how these principles traveled, inspiring later Islamic architecture across the Middle East, and even into Spain's Alhambra, where water, shade, and stone combine in a similarly soothing embrace. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the palace walls, you feel a sense of calm wash over you, imagining how these cool spaces offered refuge from the harsh desert sun, a place to relax, dream, and perhaps plot the next conquest, or simply enjoy a quiet moment with a cup of sweet tea. Remember that subtle dance between air, water, and earth. Ancient Persian air conditioning wasn't just about cooling down. It was about creating a serene environment, a slow and peaceful retreat from the blazing world outside. As night falls, you turn your attention to the role of wind catchers or badgers beyond homes and palaces, in bustling Persian bazaars and humble workshops where artisans spent their days. These towering structures not only cool living spaces, but also made work environments more bearable, helping skilled hands avoid fatigue in the sweltering heat. Imagine wandering through a labyrinth of narrow market alleys, the scent of spices and fresh bread mingling with the occasional waft of cool air from a nearby wind catcher. The design of these towers was elegant and functional, tall shafts with openings on multiple sides, catching winds from whichever direction they came and funneling them down into the interiors below. Sometimes these badgers included internal water pools, where the breeze would pick up moisture, chilling the air further before it drifted into the rooms. This primitive form of evaporative cooling works surprisingly well in dry climates, turning hot air into a refreshing draft with nothing more than stone, wind, and water. You picture the merchants counting coins in their shops, relieved by the cool air that preserved their precious goods and helped them stay alert. Historians still argue whether all badgers were equally effective or if their performance varied widely depending on local winds and construction quality. A fun little detail: some wind catchers were painted in bright colors or decorated with intricate tile work, making them not only functional but also beautiful landmarks visible from afar, sort of like ancient neon signs saying, "Cool air inside." Interestingly, the principles behind badgers appear in other cultures too. In Egypt, for example, similar towers called malkafs were used, suggesting a shared knowledge of air-cooling architecture across regions connected by trade and conquest. You might chuckle imagining how a modern office building with a giant badger on its roof would look, a bit like a sci-fi movie prop or an oversized air freshener. But back then, these towers were cutting-edge technology, combining engineering and art to create comfort in a harsh world. Further south in the Persian Gulf, coastal homes adapted badgers to deal with humid sea air, tweaking designs to maximize airflow while minimizing dampness. This regional variation reminds you how ancient engineers tailored solutions to very specific climates, a lesson in humble observation and creative problem-solving. You recall the idea of thermal mass from earlier, the thick walls storing and releasing heat, and how wind catchers complemented this by pushing cool air through these sturdy structures. It was a system designed to work with nature's rhythms rather than fight them, a stark contrast to modern air conditioning's battle against the elements. As you walk the bazaar, the blend of sound, scents, and cool breezes creates a sensory tapestry that feels both ancient and timeless. You're reminded that these simple yet brilliant inventions were part of everyday life for countless people, a quiet luxury most of us take for granted today. The next morning arrives, and you find yourself exploring the quieter side of Persian air conditioning, the ingenious use of subterranean spaces called yakhchuls. These ancient refrigerators were more than just clever storage. They were architectural wonders that harnessed natural cooling to preserve food and ice in the desert's blistering heat. Imagine stepping into a giant mud brick cone rising from the earth, its thick walls insulating the interior from the punishing sun. At the base of the structure lies a deep underground chamber where ice collected in winter could be stored year-round, thanks to a clever combination of design and climate. The word yakhchul means ice pit, but these were more than just pits. They were often connected to kanets, those underground water channels you met earlier, bringing cool water to the site to help keep the interior temperature down. The dome shape also helped heat escape upward, maintaining a chill below. Picture how the ice was harvested during cold winter nights, stored in these structures, and then used for the hot months to chill drinks, preserve fruits, or cool air when melted. Historians still argue whether yachtals were primarily for food storage or also served as early forms of refrigeration for other uses, like medicine. A charming quirk. Some yachtals had small openings at the top to let out warm air and let in cool breezes, creating a natural airflow system much like modern ventilators. It's as if the Persians invented air conditioning and refrigeration long before electricity was even a twinkle in anyone's eye. You might smile imagining ancient ice delivery workers trudging through the desert with blocks of ice on their backs, trying to keep cool themselves, probably wishing for their own yachtral refuge. Beyond practical use, yachtals were sometimes social hubs, where villagers gathered around the cool shade to exchange stories or simply escape the heat, much like modern-day cafes, but a little colder and dustier. This technique spread too, influencing ice houses in Europe and Asia, showing how knowledge travels along trade routes like the Silk Road, linking far-flung civilizations in a shared quest for comfort. You may recall how these subterranean chambers' thick walls echo the thermal mass concept, storing coolness during the day and releasing it gently through the night, a perfect rhythm to lull you to sleep. As you turn away from the yachtral, you feel the coolness lingering on your skin, a silent testament to the quiet brilliance of ancient Persian life, where mud, bricks, and water were tools of comfort and survival, rather than mere construction materials. By late afternoon, your wandering takes you to the lush gardens of ancient Persia, the famous Persian paradises, or paradisa, which influenced garden design worldwide. These were not just pretty places, but part of the air conditioning system, cleverly engineered to cool both body and spirit. You stroll slowly beneath rows of fragrant fruit trees, flowers, and tall cypress, the soft rustling leaves mingling with the gentle splash of water from stone channels. The Persian garden's design used shade, water, and air circulation in tandem to create microclimates far cooler than the surrounding desert. Think of these gardens as early air-conditioned oases, where people retreated from the heat, entertained guests, or simply enjoyed a peaceful moment. Water channels, called kanets, fed the fountains and pools, cooling the air by evaporation, while carefully placed trees and pergolas cast deep shadows, tempering the fierce sunlight. Historians still argue whether the layout of these gardens was inspired more by spiritual symbolism or practical comfort. But either way, the cooling effect was undeniable. An interesting detail: some gardens incorporated wind-catcher towers to funnel breezes over water surfaces, further enhancing the cooling experience. The combination of moving air and evaporating water created a soothing, gentle breeze, almost like nature's own air conditioner. Imagine the scent of roses mixing with the cool, moist air as poets and philosophers found inspiration in these verdant retreats. Persian gardens became symbols of paradise itself, a restful refuge both physically and metaphorically. You might chuckle picturing a hot, dusty traveler from the desert stumbling into one of these gardens and feeling instantly like royalty, sipping cool sherbet while swatting away the occasional fly with a hand-woven fan. These gardens didn't just stay in Persia, either. Their influence spread across the Islamic world and into Europe, shaping the way landscapes and outdoor spaces were designed for comfort and beauty for centuries. The balance of shade, water, and airflow in these paradisa teaches us that sometimes the best cooling isn't about machines or power, but about thoughtful design and living in harmony with nature's rhythms. As the sun begins to set, casting long golden shadows to the leaves, you feel a sense of calm wash over you, cool, gentle, and perfect for drifting off into a peaceful sleep. The sun dips below the horizon, and you find yourself wandering into the quieter corners of Persian homes, where the legacy of air conditioning lingers in the form of architectural details designed for cool comfort. The Persian courtyard house, with its inward-facing garden and central pool, is more than just a beautiful layout. It's a living, breathing climate system. Picture yourself stepping through a narrow entrance into a shaded courtyard, where the walls are high enough to block out the harsh desert winds and heat, but low enough to catch the evening breeze. At the center, A reflecting pool gently ripples, cooling the air with each splash and sending a soothing, humid mist across your skin. These houses were built with thick mud brick walls, which acted like natural insulation, absorbing the heat of the day and releasing it slowly at night. Windows were small and often positioned to maximize airflow, catching breezes and funneling them through the rooms. You might even spot wind catchers, tall, tower-like structures that scoop up cooler air and direct it indoors. Historians still argue whether these features were purely practical or also symbolic, representing a harmony between human life and the environment. Either way, the design offered a refuge from the harsh climate outside, turning the home itself into a gentle oasis. A quirky tidbit: some Persian homes had underground rooms called sardabs, which stayed cool year-round thanks to their subterranean location. Imagine retreating downstairs during the hottest afternoon, the cool earth wrapping around you like a comforting blanket. You might smile thinking about how these ancient homes didn't rely on electricity or air conditioners, but on careful observation of wind patterns, sunlight angles, and the clever use of water and materials. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions come from paying close attention to nature. As you settle into this final peaceful space, the gentle sound of water, the soft shadows of leaves, and the coolness of the evening wrap around you like a lullaby. You feel the timelessness of these ancient comforts, still whispering their secrets through the ages. Now, as your mind drifts and your breath slows, you carry with you the quiet ingenuity of the Persians, the builders of mud brick wonders, masters of cool air in a hot world. And now, as the night deepens, let your thoughts soften like the fading light. Imagine the warm desert breeze shifting gently, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and the distant murmur of flowing water. The ancient walls, thick and steady, stand silent guardians of comfort, their coolness seeping into your skin like a gentle embrace. There's no rush here, only a slow unfolding, a natural rhythm of heat and shade, of water and wind, that has soothed restless souls for centuries. Feel your body relax with a memory of those quiet courtyards and shaded gardens, where time itself seems to pause, wrapped in tranquility. Let your breathing slow, as if you too are sinking into an ancient yachtchel, cool and calm, surrounded by the echoes of history's softest whispers. No need to hurry, no need to think, just the peaceful hum of a desert night, cradling you gently. Sleep well, knowing the ingenuity of those who came before still breathes softly through the mud bricks and flowing water. Tomorrow can wait. Tonight, you rest in the cool embrace of ancient Persia.